Ah, hello there. Don't often see travellers on this route. Why don't you come join me by the fire? Well, you're not a very talkative one. Tell you what, I'll tell you a tale. Strong language does lie ahead, but you look stout of heart. Enjoy this tale of the noobs at Larp.
So we went LARPing.
Yeah, so we went LARPing.
Yeah. I guess this will be like the story of that experience from when we first kind of decided we were going to go.
A couple of people who knew nothing about LARPing before we even attempted it, which is good fun.
And like the process from making the decision to go to like having come back from event 1.
Yes.
And like our experience
So we
of what that
are
is.
4 or 5 days out from our first LARP event. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's when we start at the beginning and kind of go through what drew us necessarily to LARP, and specifically to you, because you're the kind of person who kind of got everyone else into it.
So I think for me it was kind of like this. I mean, we've done a lot of pen and paper role playing before,
a lot of D&D,
a lot of board gaming. And then a lot of kind of computer role playing games, and then bringing you guys together and getting a really good group of players. Me as GM, running you guys through a campaign, and it was a really good campaign. We were blessed with this, just kind of like a perfect storm in my feeling of just like really good players. The story was, I think, just right, and the characters really fitted it well. And it was sort of D&D through like a kind of a player-led narrative experience. It's like a storytelling game almost, rather than a role-playing game. And that's kind of how we play D&D to some extent.
I think one of the things that's interesting about the D&D thing, which is similar to LARP already, is player-led.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that we'll talk about a lot, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was so cool about it, the way you can be dynamic with it. And even in LARP maybe a little bit more accentuated, because obviously when you do something player-led with your GM, he's making a tailored experience for you based on what's happening. Mm-hmm. While in LARP, obviously, you have like concurrent experiences like that going on through different individuals seeking different things all the time, and how they kind of interact with each other.
Hundreds of tiny little narratives all exist.
Thousands.
In ways. Yeah.
You know, it's very interesting. Like every person essentially is like a node ready to kind of send ripples out.
Yeah. That's a lovely way to put it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's essentially just like thinking of like someone's just picked up rather than a stone. Hold on.
We're getting way too ahead of ourselves at this stage.
Yeah, but it's interesting. And this is the hype. This is part of the hype, and I think the hype that Phil still feel, right? And it's kind of interesting.
So let's go back, right? So
let's go back.
Into D&D.
Yeah.
When did you first hear about Empire?
Okay, so it would be through a colleague at work who worked there 2 years ago.
Right. I
knew that he role played, and it was one of those things where he was looking at something on a website, came up to him, talked to him, talking about D&D. He mentioned that obviously, then he mentioned he did a thing called LARPing, and he did it at an event called Empire, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. And that was just hearing about it.
Yeah. So what were your initial
thoughts of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, bear in
mind,
LARP
LARP from someone who has no intention to go LARPing.
Exactly. From that intention, of course, the thing that flashes to your head is those kind of cringy things of like people throwing beanbags, saying fireball, fireball, lightning bolt, that kind of stuff.
It's awful. It's my initial, like, even just thinking about it. The people that I know that have been LARPing are cool people. Yeah. But like I just very judgmental.
I think there is a really
very judgmental.
But I think that's normal. I think what most people experience until you kind of make that decision to go, and then all of a sudden if you have the flip on it where you're like, yeah, no, I can see how this would be really fucking cool, and I want to be involved. Mm-hmm. So I think anyway we'll go back to like.
So you met this guy.
We had a chat. He's a cool guy. But at the time we were more acquaintances than friends necessarily. So it was kind of like. Just essentially, when we asked,
you were aware of it being a thing,
and it's a thing in his life, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'd seen the Darkon movie, which is kind of
so good,
a really interesting look at an American role playing system. And I would say actually, I feel, and I really feel obviously biased maybe, but like Empire was better than that. Better than what they seem to have. Like the fact they didn't have the swords and the gear that we had.
Over this whole period, I haven't thought about Darkon once, and that's really interesting because I love Darkon. I might watch it again actually with fresh eyes.
I really highly recommend it. Great documentary.
Okay, so then
from that,
then
fast forward. It has to be the Hat Films video. Well, it wasn't Hat Films. Sorry, Mark Humes' Tabletop Weekly video where he has Hat Films along. I'm a big Hat Films fan. We'd obviously, I knew that Mark Humes kind of played with them a lot, and they did various games together, so I inevitably went off and watched his kind of Splinter channel when he made it. Tabletop Weekly released this video called Free Man Go Larping. I'm sure a bunch of you will probably have heard of it.
Yeah, it's had a dramatic effect, let me put that, on a number of people.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that go because of that video, right? The numbers are higher for a reason. But anyway, so from there, I sort of, just through listening to that, I was like, yeah, no, this is something I would actually be interested in doing. Yeah. But it was that kind of nervous thing of like, I would do it with friends.
Did you approach me first? Or?
Yeah, you were the first person.
The first one,
and I was like
a pusher out on the street,
well, yeah.
just looking for business.
And what was interesting, this is from here you'll be able to take over the story. I pass it to you, Dave, and I'm like, this is an interesting video. It's basically how I say it, like, I'm interested in this kind of thing.
Okay,
right?
yeah, and I would say, like, okay,
I didn't say we had to do it, right?
Me and Ian have known each other for our entire lives, effectively, for the benefit of people that don't know, right? So when he says, oh, this is something that you're going to be interested in, even if I think it looks ridiculous, I'll definitely look at it, like 100%. And my immediate reaction was, Ian loves Hat Films.
Yeah.
You love everything that Hat Films do.
I do.
And therefore, I'm going to take this with a giant pinch of salt.
Yeah.
And watch the video.
Yeah.
By the end of the video, I was like, this seems like something that we could do, and it could be fun, right? But immediately, my big concern is not even really the people, right? It's more the expense. Yeah, that was my initial first absolute.
I remember your first message to me, because this is interesting. Thinking I'm not going to quote it verbatim. We're doing this over just like Facebook's chat thing, but you messaged back and said it looks interesting or something, but I'm not sure or something, or that like you didn't think it was something you'd necessarily do or something like that. But it was such an initial response, and then like 2 days later you messaged me again, and I haven't talked to you in between that time about the video or whatever, and you say to me, we could do this.
Well, this is
so that was an interesting thing. What happened for you during that kind of, I might be wrong with the 2 day thing. I can't remember how many. It was a period of time between that other message.
I'm pretty sure I watched it again.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty sure I watched the whole thing front to back again.
Right, interesting.
And it was like, okay, here's another thing. I live in Milton Keynes, and the Empire event is near Silverstone, which is literally just a stone's throw away.
So you Googled it after the image and found out where it was, right?
No, well, I kind of had it's not. I think they mentioned it in the video, right. I think, or something like that. Right. And then anyway, I was thinking it's not very far away. I didn't know really what to expect. And I was just thinking, like, man, okay, let me put it this way, right? When we talk about like me wanting to buy a VR headset, right? Oh man, it's all I ever. When I was a little kid, that's all I ever wanted to do was to buy a VR headset and play with it. And it's like, that's what kind of LARP is as well. There's a little bit of side of me that's like a kid going, just go do it for 14-year-old me. Do you know what I mean? Go out there and LARP, you son of a bitch. Like, it's now's the time. Now's the time.
It's the bit of you that wants to hark back to that childhood experience.
Yeah, to believe that it will be good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just to think that, like, yeah, we're gonna go LARPing, me and you, and eventually another friend, which is great.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna find out what that whole thing's about, right?
Yeah. Well, it's, as I said, it's that childhood part of you that enjoyed like the Bang You're Dead, like we're playing characters from media and stuff, running around the playground, acting things out,
totally,
sort of thing. It's the part of you, and that sort of sounds demeaning and like it's saying it's
like
a
childhood
terrible.
Thing. It sounds terrible.
What I'm really saying is it's that part of you, that core part of the desires to lose yourself in the act of play.
It's the purest version of play, almost. You know?
It's interesting because it's a play as in drama, and it's also a play as in the act of playing a game. It's a very interesting. And it brings.
Yeah, but at this stage, I also want to say, having just been, like, we'll get into expectations versus reality.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not what I expected.
No.
Right?
No,
Like,
in so many different ways.
In 101 different ways, it is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And most of those are positive, to be honest.
Yes.
Or
yes.
and even, like, you can even rank it on a scale, right? Like, if you expect something to be a certain colour and it's a different colour, that doesn't mean it's necessarily better or worse.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. I think for all the things that you would maybe think were negatives, it's more a case of a tonal shift or a slight, it's actually like that kind of experience.
Yeah, this is what it's like.
You know?
Holding a sword and a shield, standing in front of a battle line.
Jesus.
It
was so good.
Oh, man. Okay, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So anyway,
again.
we're going ahead of ourselves.
No, okay, so then I think I said yes.
Yeah.
You got Bung in, who's a friend of ours, a guy called Chris. We will call him Bung or Bungle.
Yeah, so that happened at their podcast, which was Rambling Vapors. And I mentioned that I was going to be going LARPing. There was just a mention of it. Bungle said, sounds interesting. Yeah. During the break we had between the two segments in that podcast, I just sort of talked about it more, and I sort of said, look at some of the weapons and stuff that you can get. Okay, that's what I showed him. I know. It was such a filthy pusher.
Old school, like what parents are warned about on their neighbourhoods. This guy come around being like, "Do you want a little bit of fancy a little bit of D&D there, son? Why don't we just roll a couple of dice, see how it feels?
Yeah.
Then we can maybe." I've made you a character sheet. Oh. You don't even need to do that.
Oh, how generous!
Just why don't we sit down and see what happens? You're in a dungeon.
I get to roll this 20-sided dice.
You're in a dungeon. Do you know what I mean? Like it's it gets very aggressive after that. Yeah.
So anyway, I get him to look at a couple of the weapons and stuff, and I was talking about the kind of things I wanted, like what I was thinking of doing my character, and then like an even filthier pusher, I thought Bungle loves like big hammers and things like that. So I was like, they do war hammers, and
like
they look
a
legit as fuck.
A two-handed long,
straight out of like you could get one that you would think it belonged literally physically on the page of a White Dwarf magazine.
Yeah, those things look awesome, and they are no less spectacular when you see them in reality, right?
Yeah,
I have no idea how you fight with one. But just to see someone with one...
So interesting that he opted from those to go for the double swords. Anyway, but we'll get into that later. Yeah. But so I get Bungle into it that way, but I just mentioned to him at that point. And of course he said the same thing and thought the same thing, I think, that you thought and I thought. The expense was a big issue, right? Trying to do it on a budget puts the fear in you.
God, right? Just the budget, like immediately, the budget was the thing that freaked me out because I couldn't see. I did some Googling, as is the done thing, right? I did some Googling and I found out good armor is like
really expensive,
big money, and that's just like one bit. And I was like, there's it's too much, especially when even talking about the idea of camping in character.
Yeah. And we knew that very early. If we were going to do it, that's what we were going to do.
Yeah,
we did say.
Did we get I think tent was one of the first things we got, right?
I think that was what sealed it. That's what made sure that when we got the tent, we were in.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
I agree
because at that point, that's a massive expense.
How much did we get the tent for?
It's pretty reasonable, but it was off Gumtree, I think.
Well, like 300 quid, something like 400 quid.
It was 200.
It was something like that.
I think it was 200.
Okay, whatever.
Let's call it.
We both pitched in together.
Yeah.
Drove to
you got it.
Well, I drove to almost Wales and met a lovely lady and bought a tent off her.
Yeah.
And we didn't open that tent because it's been in my poxy little flat where I can't really have a look at it properly until pretty much the event.
Well, until you had a look at it, but you never put it up. Right?
No, I had no idea. I mean, it looked good, but it was in
really good,
tip-top condition.
Really
anyway,
good.
So let's go through. I'll quickly blast through how I sourced my gear.
Yeah.
Right, and then you can kind of interject, and then
I think our experiences of getting it is maybe.
Would you want to start because
other.
you probably went further on, right?
Yeah.
Like
so
at the beginning.
I think there's two ways of looking at it, and you can either basically, if you try and do it on a budget, and you still want stuff that is.
For the record, I went budget.
Yeah.
Like I went. Before we even start this,
you did really well.
You're not listening to two guys who spent thousands on this.
No.
This is literally two guys. like Ian, I think you spent a fair old whack, but I think you got total value, and I also went cheap, and I didn't really feel that my stuff didn't keep up. You know.
Weapons aside, I think if you look at our experiences of getting getting armor, and things like that, they're very different. I opted the route of building mine, and Dave went down the route of you got it cheap on eBay in a great steal. What a good purchase that was.
Well, what did you get first? What was the first thing you...
So the first thing I decided, obviously, I was going to just see if I could make armor. So I do like a couple of YouTube videos. Bear in mind, I've never done it before at all.
When you even said that you were attempting this, I had my doubts.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of those people, Dave. You know, I mean, this is a fatal flaw in me. I'm a good starter of projects, right?
Right.
So...
No, but I feel like... But even then, like...
But that's what I mean. I'm a great starter project.
I'm going to learn about at least 3 different type of textiles, and then I'm going to work out how to cut those, shape them, fit them, bolt them all together, and that not to look completely ridiculous.
So outfit 1, I decided to make, and I just got lots of cheap leather and just got all the tools. And it did cost a fair old whack to do this. But once you've got all the tools, of course, they're there forever. So I can just keep doing it now. And I think that's actually a really good investment because if you think you're going to enjoy the act of making stuff... But you enjoyed
it, right?
Right, yeah.
This is the other thing. Did you enjoy it when you first sat down and did it? Or did you enjoy it over time?
I think I enjoyed it straight away. And I think because I literally just flew into it in the sense of... doing it is a big job in terms of like you need to actually like say you want to make some armor, you're going to get a big sheet of material. That means laying it out in your living room or something big, right? You've got to kind of commandeer that space. So which is difficult, right? And then you've got to actually just do it, and you've got that kind of grown-up person's time limit on things, but you don't really have a time limit because you're the adult, but you have a time limit because everything else is going on. And like you're going to have to pack it up at a certain point in the evening. You're going to have to, and that's a massive ball ache, all of that sort of stuff. So I had like the excitement build up to like, when am I going to get that time to do it? Obviously, I got all my stuff, all my tools and things. So when I got them, I had the hype of like, I'm going to be using these things on this project. I'm going to do at this particular time to fit in. Then I just flew into it. And I'd kind of done a lot of forethought into how it was going to be, how the armor was going to be made. And my first piece I made, I really wanted it to so I could actually unconstruct the whole thing and take it all apart, that I could do it on site, and I could literally just take apart because it was all going to be done with rivets and no stitching.
Like a stripper's outfit, you could just rip it off.
I could literally just take the whole thing apart and fix any problem with it. And that's the design 1, and it worked. But it just was, I could tell it was way like a complete unnecessary sort of utility to be able to do that. So I just went, let's just make better armor, and went into suit 2, and that's when it really, I think, took on an idea of like it's got to be quick to put on.
Like, I think it looks really good. Yeah. I think like it's basically like how do you describe it? Like a thick leather.
It's a thick leather torso. Yeah, well, tunic with sort of aluminium plates riveted on it, right? So it's kind of I guess like some kind of studded leather essentially, or a mail of jacks. A jack of mail. And or splint mail combined with leather. But yeah, it's kind of cool.
I think it looks great, and I think it definitely looks the business when you're in.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to put on actually. That part of it. I mean, I had other costume problems that took ages to put on.
Let's get into that later.
Anyway, so that was my route. So while I was doing that, that's how I went about building my armor. And I could tell you the physical armor, if it was just materials and you didn't care about time, you could make my armor for 25 quid, I reckon. There's a lot of man hours involved in that. So your time is in itself.
And a lot of mistakes. Yeah. And a lot of watching YouTube videos and reading articles and... and also just getting that down and doing it, right? Yeah, you just have to go and do it, right? And then it's like, once you've done it and you've made a few mistakes and you realise that ultimately the materials are pretty cheap, actually. And especially if you're after a certain aesthetic, if you're not looking to do something like full plate or stuff like that. Although, with enough time, even that isn't that expensive. But it's just all about how much time you want to chuck in. And also, like, there's a weird RP to it as well, I think. right?
It is cool to have made my armor.
Yes.
Like there is but then I think yours is even slightly different as well, because yours has actually been made for you to a certain extent.
Well, it's been adjusted right?
For you. Right?
So basically, okay, so I was looking for armor on eBay.
Mhm.
I'm not good at eBay. I very rarely use it. So when I was out there, I was like, oh, this is so cheap. It's only got 3 days to go, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, by the way, did you not know in the last half day to 20 minutes, it just gets
Everyone goes crazy.
fucking crazy town. And I was like, I can't keep up with these big
Yeah.
boys, you know?
Yeah.
And
And
But
for the
you
record, they were
mentioned-
buying suits and stuff for about £70 on eBay, which is pretty good actually if you look at like market prices and stuff.
no, it was way over that. Like some of the stuff was going for like the stuff that I really liked the look
Yeah.
of. That was at least 200
Yeah.
every single time there was a spin of a dice, and it was just like, man,
Yeah, that is true. That is true. There is different grades, and this is no judgment on anybody's costume, and like ours is certainly by no means the best. But
mine is not great.
there is an obvious kind of thing of like, if you spend money or if you spend time, you look amazing.
Well,
Like,
but we will also get to the thing that also all this stuff, if you want to battle in it, and you happen to go on a
Yeah.
weekend
Yeah.
where it rains the entire time,
it's the
you
worst
might
mud.
potentially have to lie down in the mud or get muddy, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so okay, I found what you found, and then said to me,
Yeah, take a look.
Dragon Age. Is it Dragon Age?
Yeah, it's Dragon Age Origins, and there's this.
Right, and it's a
type
black, like it's like a gimp black.
It is really like
It's a
gimp
really
outfit.
gimpy,
Yeah.
like it's. And I looked at it and I was just like, "There's no fucking way." When you
Yeah.
first showed it to me, I was like, "Fuck!" I was like, "I'm never gonna find armor this cheap because one, it was damaged, right? It
Right.
had some minor damage to it that needed repair." You were like, "I can fix that.
Yeah.
I can fix that shit."
Yeah.
And I
By
was
that
like,
time,
okay.
I'd done enough where I was like, yeah, I can.
But
I
it
can
was,
make
it's
that.
very bondagey because it's all black leather,
Yeah.
tight black leather,
Which
and
isn't
it's got
Navarre.
Big, yeah, it's not Navarre, which is the nation that we get to.
Oh yeah.
But the shoulder pads are ludicrous.
The shoulder pads were absolutely ludicrous.
They are like Tina Turner-esque,
Yeah.
right? They are big and
So much
ridiculous
leather.
and totally impractical.
Totally
like,
impractical.
can't really move your arms in them. Terrible.
Looks way better without them as well.
Like we got to the day before the event
Yeah.
because you had been fixing it, repairing it, doing awesome stuff.
But this is the other thing. You never actually got to physically wear your
No,
armor till
all
the
my
day
stuff.
before.
No, and then we put it on, and I put the shoulder pads on, and I was like, I was deeply unhappy about
Yeah.
the shoulder pads, so
Yeah.
we just ditched them.
We just
So I
did it, and
literally
it
just
looked
kept,
way better.
and it's just like and it works with the character. I love it.
Yeah.
Got a couple of other bits. So we used a website. What was the website they went to? That's the cheap one in China.
Oh, Wish.
Wish.
Yeah, Wish was really good actually.
Wish is if you want to save some dollar and you do not mind it being very thin or maybe doing the wrong size or something.
Yeah.
To be fair, we didn't have that many bad experiences, but it is cheap ass stuff,
Yeah.
right? A lot
It
of
might
is-
not survive the event, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but that's okay because
okay 'cause
it's
you got 3 of
so
them.
cheap that
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, yeah. Anyway, so trousers, like what are they called, poet shirts? Are they? What do they call those?
just the tunics. The tunics.
Yeah,
that
they're
you have,
like
yeah, the
like medieval
style tunics with like the tie up wrists and the laced collar.
Yeah, and it's those were you bought like a bunch. I
bunch,
bought
yeah.
like one pair of like a shirt,
Yeah.
and that was pretty much it for my.
So doing this, obviously, I was doing a lot of shopping around on the internet. I think I was sending you a lot.
our asses. Okay, without those clothes,
Yeah.
I don't know what story will tell you.
Yeah.
But the ones, luckily, think of it all the way through that the rest of it is only because of those clothes that you got, basically.
Yeah.
I also bought a utility kilt.
Yes.
Because,
kilt.
okay, so we all joined, obviously, the Facebook groups. So there's like, we joined the Empire Larp one.
Mhm.
We also joined Navarre because we
Yeah.
picked Navarre.
Yeah, what made you go for Navarre? This was always because I
Okay,
remember when you suggested Navarre.
This is a guy at work. I no longer work for him, but he's going to come with us to the next event.
Right.
A guy called when there's 2 Daves in a workplace.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, I've worked there for 5 years.
Yeah.
He comes in on a temporary contract, right?
Yeah.
He is known as Good Dave, and I'm known as Bad Dave.
Wow.
Within the first couple of days, it was very fast. It was like a blitzkrieg. There was no. He's so charismatic and charming.
Wow.
He's
You're a charismatic motherfucker, Dave.
this guy blows me out of the water. He is
Wow.
such a nice he's a veteran, Ian. He served in Afghanistan.
Right.
He's legit like a brave, good. He's married. He loves his wife. He's just had a baby actually a couple of days ago.
I know. Yeah,
he's a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Congratulations, by the way, dude. Looks great.
And basically, I said to him, I was just shooting the shit, and I'm the sort of person that will talk about LARP potentially.
Yeah.
So we were on a late shift, which is just me and him, and it's very dull. And I'm basically telling him what to do occasionally, and I'm like, but it's really a one-person job.
Yeah.
So I said to him about this LARP stuff, and going, what's the deal with that? So I showed him the video.
You pushed it.
No, I didn't. I really didn't. It was more like I was, to be honest, on those late shifts, you'll end up talking about a lot of things that you don't realise. I mean, you're just...
Interesting side note, though. Did you find, like, the idea of, like, talking about it and being willing to talk about it?
I'm still extremely uneasy.
No, so I talk about it a lot. Like now,
there's certain. I work in an environment that I just don't want to have to explain myself to people.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, it's like there's a lot of people.
Well, I've just kind of mentioned I'm going LARPing or I'm doing this. I won't kind of go into details unless people ask. You know what I mean?
I think we work in very different environments.
Places, definitely,
for sure. But yeah, and he watched it, and absolutely loved it and raved about it. Yeah. So yeah. I can't remember what the original question was now, but but it
was just basically how we kind of brought it in.
Oh, Navarre.
Yeah, Navarre, that was it.
Right. So, and Dave, he looked at it, and then he started going through the company that runs Empire is called Profound Decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
ProfoundDecision.com.
Profound Decisions,
or .co.uk.
You'll find it.
Yeah, Empire LARP. Just Google it, you'll find it. They have a whole thing on the website. You build a character, which is massively intimidating and still is, to be fair. They try and do it in the most user-friendly way possible.
I mean, they do it very well, actually, but ultimately...
But you're like, oh, it's me. That's not even... The user interface is not to blame. It's going to be like, that's who I am. Yeah. Oh, I don't want to fuck this up. Oh, I'll do this character now. I won't. Oh, I'll do this character now.
Yeah, and it's also like that whole... You kind of... Going to LARP as well, there is that whole expectations and reality thing, and then you have, like, you know yourself and what your own limits are, and it's like you'll have an image of your character and your backstory and stuff, and I guess there's... You know, everybody wants to have the slightly tragic past and all this kind of stuff.
I think everybody has a tragic past.
Yeah.
Like, well, anyone that we really spoke to.
Yeah.
I think that is a massive noob trope that people do.
Of course. Yeah.
And I think that's just something that I'm completely fine with mine.
I think so. I think, and I think, though, that you kind of learn very quickly that, like, if you chose to play that kind of stays by himself, big-time loner kind of character... You know what I mean? It would really be the worst.
Like, honestly, I get the feeling you could probably do that if you had been going to LARP for a while and knew lots of people.
Yeah.
Right? Because then at least people would interact with you. Like, no one goes there and be like, oh, I want to talk to this arsehole who's just going to basically monologue at me about his character. Nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Unless you're a fantastic orator.
Yeah.
Which the loner probably won't be.
But it's not even that. It's more like that idea of playing that character who is just sort of stays on the edge of the bar and never, interacts.
Actually,
like kind of.
Okay, hold on. Maybe we are being a little bit judgmental here because maybe there are people out there,
right,
who just want to go and watch.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of that in LARP. Like,
but you shouldn't have to limit yourself, right?
But if you choose to be a character whose sort of shtick is that they're just going to be rude to people and sort of hang on their own, then maybe you won't get the best experience out of it, because the best experience out of it is obviously meeting people to a certain extent and engaging with them. But if obviously you chose not to do that, then you're missing out on a big aspect of it. It's really just clearly that like I think you'll have a lot more fun if you try and have fun. And that means that your character will necessarily have to be have a bit more play in them than if you went for that kind of, oh, I have the worst tragic past and I can't get over it and I'm kind of in a shell all the time kind of character. I think you'd be hindering yourself.
Yeah, I thought that there was a lot of stuff to do with the different sorts of people that were there at the actual event. And I thought they were... we'll get to this, but I thought they were a really fantastic mix of people where you could tell people that potentially weren't necessarily comfortable, right?
I wasn't comfortable a lot of the time.
But goddamn, on the flip side of that, right, you have like people who are awkward, and that's fine, and there's nothing like literally...
No, that is completely fine.
Yeah.
It's nothing about your actual... Even having a conversation, there's nothing fine about that. I'm just purely talking about a character archetype of desiring to stay away. It's nothing about...
distinction though, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, there are some insanely
Unbelievable.
charismatic, fascinating, wonderful human beings.
The singers at the stories and song time thing were ridiculously good. It was like I'd paid.
If I'd paid £25 to get a front row seat,
yeah,
I would have had it. I would have felt like I'd got my money.
It almost felt like for that, it could be like the money that I spent to go to the event. I could have easily have gone to like a multi-day folk festival or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I could easily have made the same choice. The music was that good,
and it was so well put together. It was like everyone's RPing, but it's like a well put together West End show.
And when other people come up to the campfire, and they actually have something in character to share around the campfire to people who are in character. It's incredible because you have literally, that's a bit, I don't know if you want to go to this part yet, but basically when Wintermark came in...
Whoa, not yet. We've got to go... No.
That's a really
There's got to be a line, Ian.
Yeah,
we're bumping across that line right now. Rough shot.
Pull me back. Reel me in, Dave.
Jesus, we got so close to actually talking about the event then. We need to...
Yeah, we need to pull it back. Oof. So...
So we
Dave's in at that point. He does join the group. Yeah.
We should talk about our little trip to LARPCon, was it?
Yep, LARPCon.
Which was can't remember which town it was. It was a lovely little town though.
It was really nice. It was somewhere in Gloucestershire, wasn't it?
Was it Gloucester somewhere? There's a lot of stuff down there.
Might have been. It was fantastic anyway.
There's a fair old clip in the car, wasn't it? But it was all right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I came over to yours. We headed off together. You know, we had a look around. We got there kind of a bit later than maybe we should have, I guess.
Way later. But
it was just the way it was.
Yeah, we just messed about anyway, didn't we?
It was a good time. But we had a pretty brisk look around.
What it is it's basically, it's like a sales place where these people can come along, put their stalls up, sell their merchandise, and they put it in like an old abbey or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Really nice touch. Really cool. And it really got you in the mood, right? So we get there, and there's just people that are like a lot of dudes.
Yeah.
A lot of dudes.
A lot of girls, though, actually, to be fair.
Oh, man. Like, okay, for the record, I'm stating it now. I'm not going to go on about it. But deeply attractive people, both men and women, attend LARP.
Yeah.
Right?
Really.
We are not talking about just this stereotypical, a bunch of nerds yelling fireball at each other, right? We're talking like, these people are fucking cool. They're like really, really fucking cool people. Anyway, we went around. We had a bit of a shop. I managed to find, because I obviously am going massive budget on everything. I'm looking at these swords for like £60, £70. I'm like, oh, that's too much.
And me, meanwhile, I'm looking to go similar kind of budget, but I also know that I'll easily break and just buy the most amount of stuff.
Ian did his pieces. He took one look at a bow right at the start and a hood, and he was just like, for the rest of the day, you could see his eyes just ever so often would drift away thinking about it. But are you thinking about that bow again? Are you thinking about that? Just concentrate on what we're doing here.
It's a beautiful. So I've got this thing from Chow's Emporium, I think it is, and it's this 3-part segmented composite bow, and it's coloured like it's made out of bone, and it's perfect. Because I previously bought my other bow, which is actually really nice, but it's a £30.
He already had a bow.
Yes, yeah. But
he fell in love with another bow. You can't use 2 bows.
No, you can't.
That is not practical.
You can't do. So, but this other bow I had was a £30 bow, and £30 is the limit for a bow at LARP. And if you've done archery, you'll know that there's always a slight poundage variance on a bow. It can be up and it can be down, and you can warm your bow up. I won't go into too much, but that will kind of help reduce the poundage a bit. But ultimately, I didn't really want to be in the situation where I could hurt someone, or even, or in a way, I wasn't really worried so much about that. Just the idea that I may take something and they'll calculate it. Their poundage weighting thing is slightly different, and it gets banned, and then I can't use it. So I thought I was nervous about that, and I thought, I want to cut that level of nerves out, so I'm just going to get this other bow, which is £26. So I'm talking about poundages and draw weight here. It's a beast. It looks so good.
Oh, it's so good.
But yeah, a lot of money.
And the hood looked legit that you bought there.
Yeah, and my sword. My sword.
I
is
bought
really good.
a raggedy axe and a raggedy shield.
Yeah.
And We would literally walk through every single place, and I think it's the last place, right at the end of the circuit, right?
Yeah,
it's the last
I
place
think they were
possibly
getting
get to.
ready to pack up as well.
Yeah, and
You
they were
hit it at
just
the
a
perfect
bunch
time.
of very cool dudes.
Yeah,
And they were just like, "What's going on?" And I went, we're just browsing." I went, "How much for the?" I looked at the shield, and I went, "Oh, that can maybe be a buckler. It's not a buckler. It's bigger than a buckler, but
yeah,
it's like a." And then the other thing I said, like, "What about the axe?" And he went, "Oh, I'll give you an offer." And I was ready to just be like, we talked to a couple of vendors, and it was the start of the season, and they were like, "We're not doing any discount prices or anything because it's the start of the season." So, and I love me a good haggler, things like that. And they were just, to get a cold no, I was disgusted. I was disgusted, wasn't I? You aren't even humour the idea. Let's talk. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyway. Look at this shield. Look at this raggedy arse axe. That's about, I don't know, a metre long, something like that, however long that is. And he went, "I'll sell you both for 40 quid. And I was just like, I just can't say no to that.
No, it was so good. Like, you saw his will just
met
instantly
each other.
break.
It was like us monstering on the first day, Ian. We capitulated.
We capitulated immediately.
So, like, it was a total pants down, bend over.
Spoilers, by the way, but we get munted. We get badly munted.
Let's not even talk. Let's only talk about that when we have to. Jesus.
All right, so we get
the gear. We also met a lovely couple selling stuff there.
Yeah,
who
the two
were orcs.
Yeah,
and I didn't know what to expect of a young couple that want to be orcs, but they were an absolute delight, weren't they?
Like,
and
super attractive.
Yeah,
lovely people.
They were just,
and I was just like, you both look great. Why would you want to put an orc mask on?
It's like those people that you look at and go like, man, their lives must be like so fucking sweet. Look how attractive and nice and friendly and happy they are. They're like genuinely fucking happy all the time. And then they're like, what nation do you play? Orcs. What? So you wear the mask? Yeah, and we do a lot of shouting and fighting. It's like, really? That's
although
what you
here's
do.
Another thing, like, having gone orcs, there is a temptation. Don't tell me you're not tempted. Don't tell me you're not tempted for orcs.
Orcs are amazing. We'll get to some good orc stories later.
Orc RP is great.
But man,
top draw.
Like they might be my favourite nation that
Orcs are incredible. Some of the best experiences, but we'll get to those.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got our tent.
Yeah.
Got our gear that you've made, that you've edited for me. Bungle, even like coming up to the event, he was like, we were worried about Bung for a while, weren't we?
We were
There was
really
a
worried.
lot of stuff that he needed to get and then didn't do it. And then he just went, I've ordered everything.
Yeah.
Everything I will need.
His kit was immediately better than both of our kits.
I mean, he dropped some dollars
on it, but
god damn, did he look
pays off.
Fucking
his
amazing
with his dreadlocks.
Jesus,
he could legit have been on a set of a big budget.
Bungle is a stout man with a fantastically large beard and dreadlocks, right? Yeah. And you just you put a set of
he's got the piercings and stuff as well.
A piece of medium leather armor on that, Ian, and it's just like, good lord. Good fucking lord! Double sword. Yeah. So he leant back, like when he was standing, he could put one hand on one sword and one hand on the other in his sheath.
His wrists on his sword.
And just lean back like he was sitting in an armchair while standing, just like pimping since pimping was pimping.
Yeah, he looked incredible.
Amazing.
And it was just like he could legit have been on the set though of like something like Vikings, right?
Yeah.
Like no question, he could have been on like a historical movie, and you would have said, "Oh, he's like a hero character." He looked that good. It was fantastic. But
we should hold on. Okay, we need to go through one more thing, which is what skills did you take?
This was an interesting one. I did mine early, and I knew kind of what I wanted.
I did mine extremely late.
Yeah, I think. Well, we'll get to you in a second, I suppose. But for me, it was like I've always enjoyed playing like the support class in games, and I kind of enjoy always
your healer or whatever.
Yeah, so essentially I went for a healer class, and I was really into my sort of Mongol kind of trip, and I was like, which I still am in massively.
Spoilers: the Mongols will come up a lot when Ian really starts to wax lyrical and stuff.
Yeah, so I was like really in my kind of fanboyism height, and this is the other thing, because when you guys said Navarre, I'll be honest with you, my first thing was like, I'm not sure, like Navarre look a bit sort of tree people. I'm not really that into it kind of vibe.
Navarre are people of the trees. They go on long scouting missions and walk these trods that are like these pathways. We don't really know a lot of stuff at this point, so we will butcher stuff and get it wrong.
Yeah,
so.
Totally. But for me, it was like I didn't really like that archetype as a thing. I was like, I'm not really sure I want to play that kind of character. To be honest,
I sensed that doubt, but then felt like we were on a course.
You guys wanted it, so I was like, I've got the guys coming, and I don't really, I'll play anything. Was kind of my attitude, and I will say that my expectation, so my thoughts and fears regarding Navarre. In that respect, it was completely unfounded, and I think it was just based off
strength to the Empire,
strength to Navarre.
Fuck yes, that's what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I fell in love with Navarre, and I have to say, and we'll get to that later on. And it was a really great choice. It was weird. I think it was just I didn't want to be Robin Hood, or I didn't want to be that kind of in that archetype, or have that druidic vibe. I didn't really want that.
The tree elf aspect.
Yeah, I really didn't want that.
I just felt it would be very like everyone's just a bit easily offended, and like it's just a bit and it's just a bit lame,
Fey folkish, and talking about the trees and some kind of. It's like I didn't want that, and actually it turns out it's nothing like that. nothing at all like that.
Navarre like fighting, drinking, singing songs, and just generally just having a laugh in the face of danger type attitude. Fuck, like
the song we sang when we went to battle was so good.
Oh man, we'll
get to that. So anyway, so that was my fear with regards to picking Navarre, and then it was kind of like that sort of led when I actually got into it and we played it.
So you're RPing into your character sheet, right?
Yeah. So it was kind of so it's like, okay, so I'll go for an archer build because I actually really wanted to play something like Volushka or something like that because they had that slightly Eastern European. I could get ever so closer to the Eurasian steppe.
I didn't know about them,
right? And
now I know about them. They're okay with me,
They're
man.
cool.
They're pretty fucking cool.
So yeah, I was kind of into that kind of vibe. So I kind of went for a mash of the two with regards to my skills. I thought, right, I really want to be an archer. I know there's no horses in the game, but the best I can do is be an archer.
As we all know, Ian, there were horses in Empire, but they all died. So if you do talk about them, you can talk about them like they're unicorns.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No. So anyways, that's why I went my route. So I went straight on marksmanship, and then. Surgeon and physic, and that was it.
Surgeon and physic, they're separate things.
So it's actually the spellings are a bit weird, but it's basically surgeon is I can get people up, and that's what lets me get people up on the battlefield.
Right.
And then physic is what gives me all the herbs and stuff that means I can do stuff to them.
Okay.
So I kind of thought at first, I wasn't going to take that. I was just going to be someone who gets people up on 1 HP, but it just doesn't really work if you do that like that. I don't think.
For me, when I was picking skills, I was such a rabbit in the headlights for the entire time. I just couldn't look at me. Also, this came down to I don't think we need to go too much into our characters, basically. But when we did go through that process of coming up with our characters, we bounced a lot of ideas off each other and thought about it a lot. And I literally went into a kind of weird creative slump where I just couldn't. I couldn't nail the. But as we got kit, that was one thing, right? I think laying my hand on the axe and the shield, cemented a lot of stuff in that character that I was like, okay, this is who the fuck. And I'm talking. This is before the LARP, pre-LARP, as you want to say. Who I thought the character was. That's now changed, I think. Yeah. But so for character skills, once I'd written out my little blurb, which obviously had a bit of a tragedy in it because
we're noobs.
It's a Larp noob character. You've got to have a little bit of a tragedy. I went for just basically almost like a brawler, right? Yeah. So I have a shield.
I think most people will do that, right?
I've got cleave, which is quite a nice skill where if you yell cleave when you hit someone on a body part.
Which sounds way more crazy than it is, actually. It's actually really legit.
There was one guy,
right,
in one of the in a skirmish that we were in.
Right.
He was a young guy, and he only had a sword, and he was playing the Valorn guy.
Right.
It was like these slow-moving zombies, and they go as they approach you. He's coming up to me, and he's doing a really good job at acting all slow, right, as he's approaching me, and I just go, cleave. I've never used it before. I just wanted to see what it did, right? The guy just goes, oh. He generally had a look of, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Drops his sword, and then just kind of looks at me. And then I'm watching him, and then 3 other people stab him. And that was my first interaction with how I use my skill. So when it comes to skills, I feel like I made the right decision, going a little bit fighty.
Yeah, I think
I haven't changed them.
No, I haven't
so I
changed
feel
mine
like
either.
because there's a whole range of stuff you can spend your skills on, and like where you are over between things, so you can get money or in-game resources, or I mean, there's a shit ton of stuff that I don't really understand at this stage. So I haven't changed anything yet because I want to just see. I want to get to know things before we do that. Right. So we've gone through.
Yeah. And so we've got all our kit
We've
sorted.
got kit. We've got
characters.
How we got involved in it. We've got how much we got our gear for, leading all the way up to the event. I feel like
let's just dive into it.
We're at the event, so I reckon we're gonna stop now, Ian.
Okay.
And we're gonna come back, and then we're gonna do the LARP itself.
Yeah, the LARP itself. Well, prepare yourselves. It's a good one.
Well, unfortunately, I must be on, young traveller. But maybe our paths will cross again, and I'll be able to continue with the story of the noobs at LARP.